Hey everybody, Giovanni Hale here with week 4 of SNHU CYB-250. We are officially 21 days out, and this week marked a shift from understanding the tools to thinking more strategically. Week 4 focused on cyber risk management, threat modeling, and evaluating emerging technologies. I'm going to walk you through this piece by piece. Give me a minute. Let me get you set up and then we'll talk about week 4. And so, starting off, we always start off with our grades. So, let's just take a quick look at that. I am, in fact, holding 265 out of 265 points, an A in this class. Now that we got the grades out of the way, let's look over week 4 and the things that you need to do. So, core concepts that we need to work on. Week 4 Week 4 is focused on cyber risk management, threat modeling, and evaluating emerging technologies. This wasn't about reacting to threats, it was about developing the mindset to anticipate them, which is key in our field. So, let's start off with the core concepts from the tools and the mindset that I think you need to take with this particular week. We started applying frameworks like NIST, Risk Management Framework. So that's the RMF. And to assess threats, we prioritize assets and the allocation resources. So let me give you where a lot of that came from. That's going to come from the reading and resources area. So this is going to be important for this week. The big insight that you're going to get is cybersecurity isn't about protecting everything. It's about knowing what matters most and planning before an incident occurs. Most of you already know that principle, but that's what this was really talking about. So you're going to have a discussion. So let's talk about that. And we discuss risk versus the competitive advantage. In this week's discussion, we had to act like security leads and pushing back against executives eager to adopt risky emerging technology. My approach uses the CIA triad to highlight what could be compromised. The biggest threat isn't a hacker. The biggest threat is internal pressure to move too fast without thinking long term. Practitioners need to work on how are we presenting when our executives are pushing us and stating that, hey, we want to adopt this, but they're not giving it a long-term thought process. You are the resident expert in that. So they're coming to you because they trust you. So in doing that, you've got to lead them in the right direction. So let's talk about going a little bit further. And this part right here, the journal, I think this is something that you're going to love, and I'll tell you why. This was the practical part. The most engaging was a European bank. Cybersecurity criminals use SIM swapping and phishing kits to steal credentials in real time. SIMs are what's in your phone. And so you have a SIM card typically in your phone, even if it's an eSIM, which is like a lot of iPhones have those now. But what they did was they used SIM card swapping and obviously went in and changed the SIM cards because people would leave their phones sitting on their desk, for example. And we also did something on Bluetooth vulnerability that exploited like weak authentication to launch what's called a man-in-the-middle attack, which was interpreting the encryption traffic between laptops and phones. So what that means, a lot of times we do a lot of things that have to do with Bluetooth, and we have Bluetooth running on our phones. Like I have an iPhone 15 and I typically have my Bluetooth on. However, when I go in certain places, I turn my Bluetooth off because I have my Bluetooth set where you have to have an authentication key, so you can't just connect to my Bluetooth openly. However, that is something that was interesting in applying what we were learning. Both attacks show that good encryption fails when implemented poorly. So after that, cryptology practice. This is an area where, as most of you have known, MITRE attacks from last week, I struggled with MITRE attacks, the cryptology techniques. This was something a little bit new to me. I'm doing well, and it takes more effort. for me to learn it and to spend time studying it. Only because most of the time when you're learning something, it is based off of something that you already know and you connect them. And in this, I had to think of this like the body because I studied the body in my past career, prior military. And in that, I was a quote unquote medical assistant, the civilian world, but the body was something I studied. And so I had to try to connect those two. So the Bluetooth case revealed the key issue devices reuse encryption keys without proper reauthentication. So what that means in English for you is you give something permission to know you're leaving home or you're going to be leaving the office, and then you have something that you've always given it permission to do. So the flaws left attackers impersonating the devices and capture sensitive information. So you have a text message set up to send to your wife or husband when you're on your way leaving from the office. Now an attacker knows that you're leaving from your office and is able to intercept that. This could be prevented with a mutual authentication key refreshing. So you set a specific time where those what we think of as maybe really irritating contents when we're going, hey, you're constantly asking me, do I want to continue to give them access? Yes, I do. But even though that's irritating, that is ensuring that things refresh where a hacker or a bad actor does not have your information consistently. Public key encryptions. A lot of times when you go to a Starbucks and you have a public key that's given that allows you to go from Starbucks to Starbucks without having to re-enter their local Wi-Fi. This is something that you had, that's why they have you re-authenticate to prevent this technique. Security isn't just an algorithm, it's how you use it. My journal reflection was deep. My biggest shift this week came through the journal. I realized risk management isn't about fear. It's about focus. Tools like Wireshark are powerful, but without a plan, they're just noise. Wireshark allows you to monitor wire traffic. Risk management is ongoing and must evolve as an organization and attackers evolve. What that means is that policies that you have in place don't always continue and they're not going to stay stagnant. So especially with emerging tech like AI and cloud services, we have to adapt before adversaries exploit the gaps that we have. You're not going to stay stagnant in our field. Final thoughts on week 4. If you're working your way through CYB-250, this is where it starts to click for you. You're not just learning security, you're learning to think like a strategist. And that's what separates good defenders from great ones. Even if you're intending not to be a defender, you are still studying cybersecurity. So that is important. And stepping stone analysis in a description. If you need a reference, remember at SNHU, integrity is important and we need to respect each other. My work is my work. You can take my work and you can model yourself, your work off of my work, but please do not take my work and submit it as your own. My work is encrypted. When it goes to SNHU's system, they encrypt it. Each student has that same thing. That's how they know if you turn in somebody else's work. Please turn in your own work. I will see you in week 5. If there are any questions that you have, you're struggling with it, leave those in the comments below. We have a community here of well over 500 people that come here to talk about classwork and things that I teach, that I give my insight on. Feel free to leave that in the comments below, and I'll catch you in week 5.